Hello, welcome everybody to our webinar. My name is Amissa. I'm the marketing manager here at UpKeep. I'm pretty excited about today's webinar. New year, new strategies, mastery maintenance maturities level 1 and 2 with us, UpKeep. So before we dive into the webinar, let's review a few ways that you all can participate during the webinar. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, you can type them into the questions feature. That's the little circle icon with the question mark in it. We are going to have time at the end to answer questions, so we'll have some Q&A, so go ahead and type your questions in there. Also, if you have any comments or you want to join in on the conversation, you can type your comments into the chat feature. So let's practice using the chat feature for everyone here. In the chat, let us know where you are joining us from. I see people typing. John is here from Louisville.
Oh, I see.
Wait, is it Louisville or Louisville?
Louisville.
Okay.
We got New York.
Whoa. Preston's in Austin.
Yeah, good
California.
friend in there, Greg Christensen. Good friend of mine.
Great.
Wow, from all over.
Vermont, Canada.
Las Vegas, I was just there.
Iowa. We got people from
New Zealand. All right.
Sweet. I love when we have people just like literally not just the US, but all over in many different countries. We do business all over the world. So I love that we have such a diverse group of people that attend our webinars.
Brazil. I actually just fixed a few machines that are going to Brazil.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Maybe they're on to give you some feedback.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see so many people from so many places. We are very glad you're all here, and now we can get started. So I'm happy to introduce our speakers today, which I am one of them. Also, we have Brian Bashecki, CMRP, and Rachel Whitland, CMRP. Brian, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm Brian Bashecki.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, you did.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Damn it.
So I started out as a mechanic. I went to automotive school, became an automotive mechanic, quickly transitioned, went in the military. I was a GSC flight deck troubleshooter in the Navy. I ran the flight deck 18 hours a day, troubleshooting cranes, generators, static frequency converters, all during flight operations. I got hired out of the Navy to work for Caterpillar. I was a shop and field service mechanic for Caterpillar. And I got hired away from them to work for a material handling company where I worked on fully hydraulic and fully electronic machinery. And then I got hired away from them to be the equipment maintenance manager for a intermodal stevedoring port at Host Terminals. I quickly became the director of maintenance and reliability there. I've been a consultant. I own my own business, online machine company, and now I am the head of community and partnerships for UpKeep. So I've had all the jobs from technician to executive, and I'm so glad to be here and be a part of UpKeep's vision and mission. So on to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Brian. I wish my background was as impressive as Brian's, but my name is Rachel. I have been at UpKeep for almost 5 years now, and I'm our manager of our professional services team. So our team I oversee our team of implementation managers. My team's focus is making sure that our customers' accounts and the data in their system is a really sturdy foundation, making sure it's strategically set up to support our customers' team needs and workflows. So just a little bit about my background here at UpKeep as well. I was actually our first implementation manager. So I have a lot of experience with implementation, onboarding customers, making sure that we get a CMMS set up for success. So excited to be here. And then over to you, Missa.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, like I said, I'm Amissa, marketing manager here at UpKeep. I've been with UpKeep for almost 2 years, and I also recently became CMRP certified through SMRP. Also, earlier, like way earlier in my working career, I did have a job as a manufacturing technician in a semiconductor manufacturing plant. So I do remember what it was like to operate that equipment in those machines. And I also remember how much of a big deal it was when one of those machines went down. Like it was like everyone was gossiping about it and talking about it. And we like everyone, the managers were stressed, and like, it was a big deal to have one of those machines go down. So anyways, that, I do have a little bit of experience there, and thought that'd be relevant to tell you guys about. Anyways, all right, let's get going. So for today's webinar, first we'll dive into an overview of what the maintenance maturity model is. Then we'll address some of the challenges of level 1 of the maintenance maturity model, such as using spreadsheets and sticky notes for managing work orders. We'll also look at how to digitize your work order management by using a CMMS, and then we're going to go over steps for implementing a CMMS. So we created the maintenance maturity model to help maintenance teams evaluate where they currently are and what steps are needed to get to the ultimate goal of a world-class maintenance program. So the 5 levels are, the first level, which we're going to talk about today, is moving from pen and paper to CMMS. So this is a team that still uses paper and pencil to track maintenance tasks. Generally, one person fields phone calls, writes the call notes on paper, assigns the work orders through another phone call or with paper jobs. Also, at this level, the team often uses spreadsheets to manage day-to-day scheduling. Level 2 is when you're actually getting into the CMMS implementation. And at this level, a team has achieved a successful basic implementation of a CMMS, and the team has identified how they will use their CMMS with some implemented workflows, and then they roll it out to their team and their end users. Level 3 is what we're calling a successful CMMS adoption. So the team is using their CMMS to understand what they need to work on, and they're beginning to gain valuable insights into how they can become more efficient. Level 4 is about reliable data and defined KPIs. So you have historical data that is used to understand where and how the team is spending their time, which assets require the most attention, and what the ultimate impact of the bottom line is. And then level 5, where we all aspire to be, world-class maintenance. At this level, the success is no longer just about the number of work orders completed, but also about managing and maintaining the uptime of equipment. So these are just high-level overviews of these different levels. During today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on level 1 and level 2. Make sure you join us in the following months to learn more about the next 3 levels.
And keep in mind that this is not going to fit the bill for every organization, right? We want to make sure that we have just a high-level holistic understanding of what are the key identifiers of maturity of your maintenance or CMMS program. So don't think that this is like cookie cutter. It applies to every single business. It does not. It's really about the details of each individual maturity level, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through this presentation.
Right. Thanks, Brian. All right. So let's dive into level 1. Maintenance teams are so crucial to a company's bottom line. And at UpKeep, we believe that a team can be recognized as a revenue contributor rather than a cost center. But unfortunately, we all know that many teams are still managing their work orders by writing them down on paper or tracking them in spreadsheets, which we all know is not only time consuming, but also not efficient and can be unreliable. Work can get missed or even lost. So we want to empower you all to aim for maintenance operational efficiency. Some of the main challenges associated with trying to track maintenance work orders in the manual way are not having good visibility and tracking of the work, slow response times, lack of confidence in your team from other departments in the business. And all of that also obviously is going to affect team morale. I actually have a question for all of you guys that are here. In the chat, tell me, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to managing work orders?
So, Amissa, I just want to add something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's one thing that stands out, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have had this happen, is where you have an issue at your plant or your facility or with a piece of equipment that accumulates some sort of downtime or extended cost or manpower or waste or something that's a negative impact to the business. And then someone comes along from your bigger business and says, hey, why'd this happen? Or how are you tracking this? How do you look at that? So business confidence is key. Business confidence is what's going to allow you to get the expenditures and the capital to make improvements, whether it's CMMS or not. Another thing I want to note here is that it's okay if you do not have a CMMS. Not every business requires a CMMS, okay? But if you're going to make jumps and strides in efficiency, eliminating waste, and managing the bigger picture of your maintenance business, it is somewhat of a necessity.
Yeah. So we have some answers rolling in from the audience. It looks like Nathan says bad or missing information. Josiah says communications, that there are issues, is just a problem. Hardest part, Kyle says, is changing habits of old hands.
Mm-hmm. That's culture.
Rafi says accurate data is an issue with managing their work. Capturing real history of the jobs that have a real RCM. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you all for sharing that with us. Brian, you did already give us some insights. Do you have anything else you want to add about the challenges?
Yes. So all of your challenges are common. Don't think they're unique to you. They are the most common. Everything everybody's saying in the chat is a super duper common thing when it comes to managing work. It's all about work process. And all of this is going to stem from the culture of your employees, the value and the intricacy of your implementation and your discovery sessions with CMMS providers, and then ultimately the adoption of the business with your CMMS. Here at UpKeep, we have a lot of resources that go into ensuring that things are right from the beginning, so that when things start to play out and become scale and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, you have that much higher, you have a greater chance of success because things have to be done correctly in implementation. And most of the things you guys are reporting are very fundamental issues that a lot of people have.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, audience, for joining in on that conversation. Now let's take a look at embracing a CMMS. And then I know I haven't said this yet, but for those of you that are unfamiliar, CMMS stands for Computerized Maintenance Management System. So it's software that manages maintenance. They are particularly great for streamlining work order management, tracking assets, and also getting going on a preventive maintenance program. Do you guys, for everyone here attending, we're going to ask another question for you to type in the chat. What kind of experience do you all have with using a CMMS? Do you currently use one? Have you used one? Never used one? Whatever it is, let us know in the chat. And while we're waiting for those to come in, Brian, can you speak to some of the key benefits you've experienced from using a CMMS?
Sure. The number one and the most value-driven experience and a benefit you will receive from a CMMS is planning and scheduling. Planning and scheduling by far is the most value-adding process that you can do for a maintenance and reliability organization. I've implemented UpKeep, I've implemented many systems, and the amount of effort that goes into a proper implementation and then the setup of your planning and scheduling is immeasurable. I mean, yeah, you're going to measure it, right? Because you're going to have proper operational alignment with priorities of planning and scheduling work. You're going to have reduced waste. You're going to have reduced manpower waste, all those things. But it is by far the biggest thing for CMMS. Work management in general. Asset tracking is important. Preventive maintenance is a part of work management, but work management at its core is what the fundamental function of a CMMS is.
Nice.
With transparency. So being able to recall and understand the things that were completed and how and when and why.
Nice. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of answers rolling in. I see like Randy's used a CMMS for 42 years, so he's a very experienced user. And then we have some people who are working on implementation right now. It looks like most of the people here have had some sort of experience with a CMMS, or they're familiar with using them. Oh,
Max Eklund, the QR codes. We handle tons of QR codes. I managed $100 million in assets across 7 states with UpKeep. And I had a QR system, coding system for not only assets, but part numbers as well.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Brian. All right. Looks like we got a lot of good answers in there. All right. So to continue on talking about embracing a CMMS, Improved maintenance planning and scheduling, which Brian was just talking about, are also like huge benefits of embracing a CMMS. So we have many customers that are stoked when they can have a single source of truth for their maintenance data. They love that they can integrate IoT devices and use the CMS for predictive maintenance as well. Brian, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so some of the people in the chat will know this. I know Greg and I have talked about this many times, is when you're looking for a CMMS system, we want to focus on the core functionality that aligns with the business, right? But it's not a bad idea to be thinking about your future business growth and the scale associated with your organization, and making a selection with a software that is able to grow with your business, whether it's through IoT, I don't like to say predictive, condition-based maintenance, all those things is a win, right? Because you're going to get essentially the CMMS will grow with you, and it'll have what you need when you need it. You might not need it right now, but it will have it when you need it.
Thanks, Brian. So let's talk a little bit about how to choose the best CMMS for your team. So it's really important to decide what your core maintenance needs are, what your budget is, what kind of support you'll need, how much training your team might need when evaluating these systems. So for example, if you have locations that are remote and there's little to no internet or cell service, you're probably going to want to find a CMMS that can still be used and updated even when doing work in remote locations.
Offline mode.
Yeah, exactly. And along those lines, if your maintenance teams travel to several locations, you'll need a CMMS that can be used from a mobile phone, right? So that they can be doing work in real time and tracking that in your CMMS. Brian, what other key factors do you think are important to consider here with this evaluation process?
So the key considerations are pretty much on point, right? Every business is unique, and every business's rate of growth and the changes are very dynamic. So that's why in the beginning I said this is not like a one size fits all, right? It's really about helping people understand that the alignment with their current and future business is paramount. That's why that's number one on this list. But all of the other things essentially will fall into how your business or your maintenance organization currently operates and will operate. The cool thing is the sheer implementation of work management through a CMMS will alter your maintenance organization's future, right? Because you're literally changing the foundation of how it does its business for the better. So all of these things are fluid, right? But connecting it to the current and future business is paramount.
Awesome. And Missa, I'll just add in there as well. Another key consideration that's listed there is the user training and support. This is also something really important to consider. So to ensure that the change management, the adoption of any CMMS is going to be successful, you want to make sure that there's a team to support your team. So something like 24/7 support to support if you have a 24-hour facility, if you have international locations, and just making sure that your team has a live person to speak to that can help through any questions they have if they come across any issues working through the CMMS, or just have those resources available to them at any time as well.
Spot on. And also, to add to Rachel, UpKeep is the only CMMS provider that has a bank of real vetted professionals and experts with over 150 combined years of experience at the disposal of our customers. So when you talk to UpKeep, if professional services and customer success have questions, they're going to somebody who actually knows. So keep that in mind. You want real support. And Rachel's 100% correct. We have real support.
Shameless plug from Brian. Thank you both. Let's talk about, we'll continue on this evaluation process topic, but I think the next step, like once you've actually identified your needs, then you have to actually pick a CMMS, right? So it's good to look at review sites, refer to industry experts or colleagues to see what they've used or have tried. It's important to make sure to, actually Rachel already touched on this, but to make sure that the company that you go with has things like 24/7 support, good training support, and hands-on implementation programs. Rachel, what else should they look for when evaluating a CMMS to choose?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, I think Brian touched on this when we talk about scalability. So just understanding, right, what at the baseline is going to be the functionality in a CMMS that's going to help support your current pain points, what you're looking to establish with your team. Definitely, as we start to dive into more implementation specific, you'll probably hear me use the phrase crawl, walk, run approach a lot of the time. But I think it's really important to understand what your goals are going to be. And so with kicking off the implementation of a CMMS, we might start in that crawl phase of having the baseline functionality just to enable your team to start using the new tool, that user adoption, but also considering what you'll need in the later phases and that it has that functionality for your future goals as well.
Awesome. Brian, what do you think?
I was just responding to somebody in the chat.
Okay.
Manav James asked what makes UpKeep stand out from other users in the industry. And I would think the biggest standout is support, hands down. Support is the biggest. We offer support that is unrivaled. I'm a part of that support. There's a ton of people that you have access to that in other CMMS companies you will not have access to. Yeah, you might find somebody that knows their system really good. It can help you create an asset. But UpKeep is the only company that provides people to you that will help you understand how that asset should be functioning, where it fits into your bigger business, and how you can leverage a CMMS to increase the availability of that asset. So big difference between system expertise and maintenance industry expertise. UpKeep has both.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think another thing to touch on is the role of maintenance teams being a change agent. So we like to call them, we've coined the term maintenance mavericks, but these are people and teams who have a vision for their maintenance team and improving it. And they take the needed steps to create the change and are instrumental in the change happening. So it's not always easy, but these are the people who work hard, they care about the success of their team, and are willing to take the steps necessary to bring about positive change for their team. So maintenance mavericks help create positive change in a number of ways, which include they're really instrumental in helping overcome resistance to change. Like if you're trying to implement a new system that people aren't used to, and there's some resistance from part of the team, a maintenance maverick is a person who helps facilitate that change and helps get the rest of the team on board by being like an early adopter of the program. They also are, because of their mindset, are really good at adding to fostering that culture of continuous improvement and learning. So a maverick, like having your team be a maverick, or sometimes it's an individual on a team, these are the people who really are the people that initiate the change and really get it going. So I think it's important to recognize that this is a part of being able to make these types of changes. Brian, what do you think about maintenance mavericks in this topic?
First thing that comes to mind is a champion, right? Success of any change has to have a champion. And that champion needs to understand the organization, and it needs to know how to navigate the organization. And one of the biggest things is how to communicate with all levels of the organization. When you can communicate value and even things that are unvaluable, right, in an appropriate way, you stand a much better chance of having these change agents and having all these things transpire. We find often, I've talked to hundreds of UpKeep customers and hundreds of other customers. We find often that one of the biggest challenges for this type of adoption is we don't know how to talk to the boss who writes the check. We don't know how to communicate the value to that person because he's not there doing the work. He doesn't have visibility. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? And we have ways of helping bridge those gaps.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. All right. Well, now let's head into talking about level 2 of the maintenance maturity model. So level 2 of the maintenance maturity model is all about implementing a CMMS. So at this level, the team has successfully implemented a CMMS and has started seeing benefits of the enhanced efficiencies. So to fully realize level 2, there are some key steps that need to be taken in order to successfully implement a CMMS. Step 1, it's important to know your existing maintenance workflows and to analyze where there could be improvements. So when you go to implement the CMMS, you'll know what you're going to need out of the CMS to have it apply to your unique situation. Rachel, I know you are an implementation expert. What can you tell us about preparing for a CMMS implementation?
Yes. So everything that we see here is absolutely applicable. I would say the first thing, right, is understanding your pain points and what are we trying to solve with bringing in a CMMS. The important thing that is to note is that actually going through an implementation and making sure it's done well is going to require internal resources. So it's really important to evaluate how to allocate those resources for your set implementation time. So we know that it might be some work up front, but at the end of the day, to be able to hit those goals, help improve your business, your organization, and ultimately solve the pain points for your team, we want to have a core group of the main stakeholders to help actually get involved and to make sure that the implementation is going to be successful for your organization. So a really big thing there, right, is kind of what we were talking about on the maintenance Maverick slide, is identifying those champions that are going to champion the CMMS that you choose, having them involved in implementation. So they're the ones who can actually test to make sure that all the functionality is there. They can speak to the data when they're talking to the team that's going to be using it in their day-to-day. So that's going to be a really big piece that I always make sure to put a lot of emphasis on when we're kicking off an implementation or pre-implementation, when some of our customers might ask, who's the correct people to be involved? What is this looking like for the time that we need to spend? Those are exactly the types of questions that we want to hear, because it also means that you're really dedicated to the implementation and it being successful.
Yeah.
Two
Awesome.
points to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
Two key things there. The implementation is the time to bring people into the process. Mm-hmm. It's only second to the discovery session for the selection process, right? But the second is you have to bring people in. I'm talking technicians, planners, parts guys, finance. All these people need to be a part of this if you're going to leverage the full functionality of what you're after. The second thing is, I'm not going to put percentages to it, but arguably the most amount of work needs to be done in implementation. That is the most amount of work that needs to be done. If you have a really easy breezy implementation, likely you're going to run into some hiccups down the road because something has been missed. Okay. Implementation is tough. Managing the system and letting it do what it needs to do with your interaction should be the easy part.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I know that you've implemented CMMSs at past places you've worked before. So it's really good to get your insight on that.
And Rachel's done hundreds of them as well.
Oh, she probably more than 100 at this point, more than hundreds. All right. So moving on to step 2. Once you've identified how you're going to need your CMMS to work for you, then you actually need to select the CMS that will address your needs the best. So making sure that the CMMS can be customized to fit your needs is very important. Also, making sure the CMMS company has a good support and implementation team, as we've talked about, to help customize that CMMS. Brian, what do you think are the most important things to consider when selecting which CMMS to go with?
I would say where you are currently in your maintenance journey, right? Whatever the level of sophistication or unsophistication that is, and where you want to be. And you have to align the provider and their offerings with that thing. You know, you could go 100 ways with this, but at the simplest core of it, you got to know where you are, you got to know where you want to go. And the CMMS, the CMMS platform, but also the CMMS company needs to be the machine to move those from that where I am to where I want to be, right? It's an all-encompassing thing. It's not just the software. It's not just the support, right? It has to be the symbiotic relationship of the two to get me where I am and where I want to be.
All right. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So I would say really for especially my team, right, our team of implementation managers on the right-hand side of the slide, those 6 are really important to keep in mind, because we kind of, in my world, right, I see that second part of the slide on the right-hand side is really what the CMMS provider that you choose, their implementation team should be able to support you with all 1 through 6. So the important thing is that when you're evaluating for a CMMS, you understand your requirements, your pain points, and then you're ultimately relying on that CMMS CMMS to help solve them. So I know with our implementation process, right, helping to define those requirements, that's something that our team works with our customers to really have a true understanding of what the need is. And then us being an expert in UpKeep and our tool, being able to help define how are we actually going to configure the application? What are those workflows that your team needs to support the day-to-day? And then based off of your team and what capabilities you need each of those team members to have, your implementation team is going to support those types of decisions. And right, we've touched on training and support a lot here. So that's also something that's going to be really important, and that feedback loop. So I don't want this to go as something that we don't speak to, that a lot of with that support that should come with a CMMS is a strategic partner. So in our world at UpKeep, right, those are your customer success managers, your team, that as you continue to work with your CMMS, that over time, your needs are going to change. You know, we're going to have more advanced needs, and that feedback is being shared with the CMMS team so they can understand how to help you and being able to advocate for any types of changes in functionality that you may be providing feedback about, right? So that's another important aspect of support, is also having strategic partners at the CMMS company that's going to support your long-term goals.
Awesome.
Agree.
Thanks, Rachel. All right, heading into step 3. So step 3 is all about adding data and information into your CMMS after you've selected which one you're going with, so that it can be used. So to name a few, you'll need to add your assets, your technicians as users, any other important documentation crucial to your maintenance operations. Rachel, what can you tell us about the process of adding in maintenance data to a CMMS?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll echo what Brian said earlier too, where implementation should be the toughest part, right, of bringing a CMMS into your organization. And those first 2 points of check what you have and clean and organize. The data coming out of a CMMS is only going to be as good as the data that goes into the CMMS. So it's really important if you have data that your team is looking to make sure it's up to date, that it's accurate. And then really your implementation team that you work with will be able to help with everything, steps 2 through 7, but making sure that data is following best practices. Again, always supporting your team's needs and workflows. So based on what your goals are, that CMMS team and the implementation team should be able to help with the formatting of the data, making sure that what you need to see on a work order, the data is structured and the naming convention supports what your team needs. And then also everything that you might need from reporting or for any department that's going to be looking at data from UpKeep, that it makes sense to your entire organization. Right. So the other really big benefit of working with an implementation team is going to be that step 5 of actually the data migration. So you also want to make sure that you select a CMMS that's going to enable your team to easily manage your data moving forward. So Brian called this out, that having a CMMS that's going to support your team down the line with just your day-to-day workflows, being able to manage your data, that also comes with ease of use of an application, right? So something like having an easy import tool to be able to get data in bulk, the ability to bulk update your data if there's ever a need. So once you're working with data, I would say the key factor is just really making sure that your team is evaluating your current data or the data you bring in to make sure that you start out with a really sturdy foundation of up-to-date and accurate data. And then everything else will fall into place in working with an implementation team or your admins moving forward, being able to manage that data.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Brian, is there anything you want to touch on this one?
No, she's on point.
All right. Okay, so now that you've selected your CMMS, added in your data, now it's time to create a training and onboarding process and deploy that to your team. So Rachel, what are some key tips for training staff on a new CMMS?
Yeah, so definitely with our training program, right, there's a really important phase that's called change management. And this was touched on kind of throughout the presentation, especially with the maintenance mavericks, is how do we overcome resistance to change? So first and foremost, we always say at UpKeep, it's better to over communicate than under communicate. It shouldn't be a secret that a CMMS tool is going to be implemented. And as we've called out as well, we want to make sure that we have those individuals all across the organization as champions involved really early on. So technicians, our end users, anyone from, the executive team that's going to be looking at reports, purchasing, finance. So we do want to make sure that we have it a known thing that this implementation is taking place. And then when it comes to the training piece and that change management, communicating to the team the expectations of specifically when our training is going to take place. And the really big important piece here is that you're letting your team know exactly the date essentially that we say the CMMS will be implemented, and moving forward, all data goes into the CMMS. I think that's a really important piece. And we have templates that we provide to our customers on emails to send out how this can be communicated. So the team also has advanced notice of starting on this day, we're going to be using this new tool. And with the training piece, you want to make sure you have that with enough time for the team to be able to become comfortable with the application, have the ability to go in, click around, put in test work orders. So when you do have that go live date, they already feel like they're super comfortable and they understand exactly how they're going to get meaningful data into the system. So we have a lot of different tactics, right? If we're concerned about resistance to change, we have tons of stories of how we've done some on-site trainings. We've added some fun into it, made it raffles for people asking questions. And we've gotten a lot of really good engagement and feedback about having the teams be super involved in the training. So ultimately that when they do go live, they already know the application and they feel really comfortable.
At the very thought of implementing a CMMS, as soon as there is some form of traction that a CMMS implementation or discovery session is going to happen, tell the team. Mm-hmm. Let them know that things are going to change, right? And that it's for the better. And if you get anything out of this whole webinar, what I'm about to say is probably the most important thing. You have to make sure that any form of work management implementation is connected to the people who do the work, not the C-suite, not finance, not all these people. It has to be connected to the people who do the work. They are going to be giving you the information pertaining to your assets, your work management, everything. If they do not see where they fit into this picture, it will not work. They have to be connected to it. And the most important thing you can do in that connection is make them a part of the process. Have them help you write procedures. Have them help with your nomenclature. Have them help with all the things that they're going to be interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So important. It is missed 99% of the time. And then you get what everyone complains about is, well, the guys don't put any information in here. There's no work history. There's no pictures. They didn't say what they did. How do I know this bolt's torqued? Well, if you brought them into the process, they would help you establish that. And then they would be, oh my God, I made this. I'm interacting with it. I am a part of this work management. I am a part of this implementation. They have to be involved. People who do the work are critical in CMMS implementation.
I love that. Yeah. All right. Here we are, step 5. It's all about creating key workflows. So like, for example, work order creation processes, work order scheduling, also reporting on work orders. Rachel, what are some of the most important workflows to start out creating when first implementing a CMMS?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it depends on where you're at in our maturity model, right? So I think first and foremost for our customers, depending on where they're at, we work with a lot of customers that are coming from paper and pen. They're really early on in their CMMS journey. And really the crawl, walk, run approach is going to be really important, where when you first get into a CMMS implementation, that really important focus is going to be user adoption. So first and foremost, focusing on the reactive workflows. So how are we documenting our one-off work orders, making sure that we're actually getting the documentation of what happened, what was the time spent. When we talk about crawl, walk, run, I know a really big important need is preventative maintenance as well. So that's always a really important workflow as well. And so when we say crawl, walk, run, it's also the approach where identifying, right, we have our reactive workflow out of the gate, make sure we can start getting that digitalized, making sure everyone can start documenting their work orders. With preventative maintenance, I think sometimes it can be a little daunting, and it's important to focus on critical pieces of equipment. So it's very common if someone's really early on in their process for implementing a CMMS, the focus can be 5 p.m. schedules just to get started, enable your team to have that user adoption, become familiar, and then implement over time. So yeah, Brian, if you want to add anything there.
I do. You could see my face, I guess. Um, one tip. So it's a recommendation is if you're going to start out as, and I agree with Rachel, start small, right? Handful of work orders, maybe make it on your critical assets, things that are people pay a lot of attention to, right? Or maybe you're bad actors. But don't make the mistake of most companies where they just go, okay, here's the PM schedule, and then there's nothing associated with the PM. A PM is essentially useless, and a PM schedule is essentially useless if you do not have an appropriately written task for the PM. That is, why am I inspecting this assembly? Why am I replacing this part? How do I know it's good? How do I know it's bad? You have to have a task list associated. So if my recommendation is you do start small, 5 work orders, have 5 strong task lists that are written about that asset. Because then the value that you're creating, as opposed to number of work orders, you're creating valuable work orders that are going to yield some form or result, as opposed to just going, we did 5 work orders. Now you're going to say, we did 5 competent, strong work orders, right? That are actually doing something for our business. That's all I had to say.
Yeah. Quality.
Quality over quantity every single day.
Yeah. All right. So after these steps we just went over is when level 2 of the maintenance maturity model has been achieved. So the next level is level 3, which I talked about earlier, successful CMMS adoption. And that focuses on full integration and fully utilizing the CMMS's potential. We are going to be talking in depth about level 3 next month on February 22nd. So look out for the invite to that webinar in your email coming soon. Also, our teammate Kobe's been in the chat posting links to, if you want more details on this guidance we're giving, you can download those guides. So look for those links in the chat. Now let's get into some Q&A. What do we got here? Here's a question. How can we cover productive maintenance in CMMS? Any ideas, Brian?
So I need to understand what productive maintenance, what you mean by that. Basically, any maintenance that you're planning or scheduling should be productive. So I'm not quite sure what that means.
Okay. We'll see if Mohammed, if you want to elaborate on what you mean by productive maintenance, then Brian might be able to answer your question a little bit better. I did see some questions coming up in the chat. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. Ronald asks, who can I talk to about expanding the use of our UpKeep in the most effective way? Rachel, would that be reaching out to their customer success team member?
Yes, definitely. So your customer success manager, if you don't happen to know who that is, reach out to our technical support team and we can make sure that you get routed to the correct person. So I can put that email address in the chat, but yes, it would be your customer success team.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like Kobe posted a link to customer support webpage. So should be able to get in touch with someone who can lead you in the right direction.
So Mohammed did respond. He meant to say predictive maintenance.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So I don't like the word predictive, but I will say when you're managing condition-based maintenance through sensor data or AI, any form of technology, right? UpKeep has the appropriate integrations. We actually offer our own sensor systems right through UpKeep Edge, and then we also have Data Hub, which is kind of this holistic system that is connecting your ERP, your sensor data, your CMMS, right? It's one centralized hub for you to leverage all of your business maintenance and organizational data to make informed decisions, right? So we have the ability to cover all of those things. I will say this is where the scale comes into play. Mm-hmm. If you want a CMMS to just jump right into predictive maintenance, you're doing it wrong. CMMS comes to work management and core functionality and stabilizing your maintenance department. Once the business goals are being met and achieved, further optimization then warrants condition-based maintenance. So please don't make the folly of going right to condition-based maintenance without a strong foundation of core maintenance.
That's a really good point. Biting off too much in the beginning. Gotta get that good foundation set. Rachel, does UpKeep have the ability to import data from other CMMS platforms? Do you do that in implementation?
Yeah, absolutely. So mapping data from other systems, it's very common. UpKeep specifically, and probably any CMMS would have their specific templates that the data needs to be mapped to. But part of our implementation process, where it's called our requirements phase, but that was mentioned, of really doing that deep dive into your data needs. If you already have existing data, that's a really great place to start, where we can take that data and then essentially map it to where we need it to go in UpKeep. The big piece there that I'll just call out that's really important is that when you're coming from another system, that also, right, the really big piece there is making sure that all of that data is clean, it's up to date, and that it is data you would want to carry over into UpKeep. That's going to be the most important piece, right, is making sure it's accurate, because the data coming out of UpKeep is only going to be as good as the data going into UpKeep. So
when you switch a CMMS, and I've done it, okay, it sounds difficult and hard and gruesome, but you're afforded a very, very important opportunity. And that opportunity is you get to look at everything you didn't like and it wasn't working, scrub it, make it right, and then re-implement it correctly. So remember, when you're switching from a CMMS that you currently have and you want to go to something new, don't think and don't let anybody tell you you're starting from zero, because you're not. You're starting at 50%. You just got to put in a little elbow grease to make sure what you have is what should be put into a new system.
Awesome.
I'll leave it there.
I really love Greg. He's like answering all the questions for us, which is really nice. But Lindsay, yes, we do have an open API and can integrate with other systems to answer that question. Here's a question for Brian. With the present software applications available now, is there any difference between a CMMS and an EAM?
Yes. CMMS, Computerized Maintenance Management System, EAM, Enterprise Asset Management System. So I'll get back to, I'm a stump speech for core and fundamentals, okay? A CMMS at its core is for work management, maintenance activities, okay? An Enterprise Asset Management System is at its core more of a asset management and business understanding software, right? So you're looking at purchase orders, you're looking at inventory, you're looking at the cost of an asset over its life cycle. But a CMMS can integrate with an EAM, okay? And remember this, maintenance and asset management are not the same thing. Maintenance is what we do, okay? Asset management is a strategy for planning the acquisition, life cycle, and disposal of an asset, okay? And that's where the financials really come into play. So EAM, CMMS, they're tossed around, synonymously, but at their core, they are a separate thing. Now, hold on, just hit me. EAMs can have a maintenance management arm, like SAP is like an enterprise, Oracle, all those are like a huge, big system, and they offer like a maintenance toolkit. That is not a CMMS, okay? That's a goofy thing that lets finance people look at random stuff that makes no sense, okay? You need a CMMS. When you're UpKeep or not, when you're scoping a CMMS, make sure it does the core of what a CMMS does really well. And an EAM at its core is not a CMMS.
I think we have a question that might be good for Rachel. How flexible is UpKeep in uploading bulk data? So I know you touched on that a little bit, but maybe you could elaborate on doing bulk uploading of data.
Yes. So our out-of-the-box import tool is designed to help import or upload bulk sets of data. A really important thing as well is that we have the ability to bulk update data. So once data is in UpKeep, it's really easy to just export what you already have, make your desired changes, and then import that back in and have those changes made. So managing data in UpKeep is very easy, and that is by design, right? Especially a big thing for UpKeep, and I'll just speak a little bit to implementation, the goal. The goal of implementation is to get you set up with a really sturdy foundation for your data structure, making sure that your admins, the individuals that will be managing data, have a really good understanding of how to manage your own data. So then once you are live, you're actually out in the field using UpKeep, you don't have to rely on our team for a turnaround to get your data updated or changes made. We really want to enable you all to be able to manage your data in the way that feels most fitting, whether it's one-off changes, bulk updates. So by design, it's very easy to manage your data in bulk using UpKeep.
Okay.
But keep in mind, UpKeep is a CMMS. It's not a project management software. So Rachel's right. The integration would have to be the key there.
I think this probably would also be best for Rachel. This person is trying to get an idea of if you have a team of 30 frontline maintenance professionals, like how much time, basically he's saying like, would it take for a CMMS implementation? Like what kind of scale and timeline are you looking at for a team of 30 to implement a CMMS?
Yeah. So really the thing to consider is the data that you're getting into the CMMS, your volume of data, because ultimately, and when we talk about the team involved, you do want to have your champions, as Brian mentioned too, those that are going to be out in the field actually using the application. We want to make sure they get involved, but you should really have your select champions that are ultimately going to help with making those decisions about the data and then being able to champion to the larger team. So your larger team will be involved in the training, making sure that they have everything they need when the system goes live. But it will really come to the volume of data that you have and the workflows that you're looking to establish versus the size of your team. So I would say the size of the team wouldn't be as much of the factor as it is the data that we're looking to bring in. But we do, just in terms of UpKeep implementation, right? We have different implementation packages that have different timelines. So we have the quick start, which really focuses on the foundational data. And that's really focusing on your locations, your assets, getting your users in the system, getting them trained and establishing your reactive workflow. That's a 30 business day timeline. And then for our advanced package, it's going to be a 60 business day timeline, which is roughly 12 weeks. That's everything that's going to get your foundation set up. And then also any of the more advanced components, such as preventative maintenance, parts and inventory, if there is condition-based maintenance. So just an indicator there of the time allocated between those 6 and 12 weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're coming to a point where we are going to wrap up. If we didn't answer your questions, we are going to send out the recording after this. Kobe posted some links where you can get in contact with us to help with whatever type of question you have. Also, too, we'll look through here, and if there's any specific questions that looks like we didn't get to answer, we'll have someone from our team reach out and talk to you guys about that. So really appreciate everyone coming today, and thank you so much. And please come to our webinar next month where we're continuing on talking about these maintenance maturity levels. And thank you, Rachel and Brian, for being
download the 14-day trial.
Yeah, expert advice. And Brian is the best because he loves promoting UpKeep, and we like that. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. This was so fun. I hope you found it useful.
Yeah, thank you all. Bye.
Bye.